off to be put in a unit where I could do full-time working with young people than to try to fill in my off-duty hours that way. And so they established the car club unit, and I not only was in charge, but I was the staff, and we really had a good time for the next 15 years or so.
All of us were very fortunate that we did have these types of individuals in leadership roles who were willing to assist and cooperate in trying to turn a problem around. Consequently, a tremendous job was achieved. The main thing that the involved police officers did was to cultivate a feeling of respect and loyalty for law enforcement among a group of young people who probably hadn't paid that much attention, other than just looking over their shoulder and hoping they wouldn't get a ticket. But it went a long way. I think that without that kind of start and without that kind of support, I seriously doubt that we would have been able to put together and maintain the organizational activities that generated in ensuing years.
Santa Ana, it was a nice track. It was good and wide. It was had fairly good traction for the time that we needed at the time.
I might say too, let me add this, C.J. Hart was a gentleman. This guy had as terrific head on his shoulders, and what he is, he's still out here today, the age he is, still participating in this, and this guy was a real pioneer in this whole thing, and one of my very best friends.
The SCTA produced an experimental drag race on the old blimp base in Orange County, and just a few miles away, C.J. Hart was introducing drag racing, and again in cooperation with the California Highway Patrol at the old Orange County Airport.
In 1950, we were doing street racing, so we seen the necessity of getting off of the road, and we went out to the Orange County Airport and tried to get them to lease us the ground, which they did at a 10% of the take. From 1950 on, it just blossomed, and we was running at first mostly all stock streetcars. Within a couple of weeks, we had the dragsters and so forth, funny-looking cars coming out there, and then with the big engines, the Bonneville cars, they'd stop down there and make their runs. It was the first commercial strip that was operating. We had another one up north that just went and raced, but this was the first commercial. It cost 90 cents to run, 90 cents to get in, and the speeds at that time was in the 90s, first race. It was kind of a madhouse. They just come in there in droves. It was a success right from the first day we opened up the place, and we run it about 50 weeks out of the year. And we didn't go into it thinking about making money out of it. What we wanted to do was get the boys and the girls off of the street instead of having street racing, Mile Square and places like that, and we didn't know we was going to make any money out of it. I met the little girl coming out of high school, and everything just clicked, and Peggy was the backbone of me and kept me going, and she really loved to race, and she did do a lot of it, and also worked during the week getting everything ready. For 46 and a half years, she was behind everything. In fact, she was very much behind me all the way. And she was a driver that, at that day, was hard to beat.
In Southern California, we had a situation where we knew that we were fortunate, that we had first had the dry lakes, and then later were able to utilize unused airport runways for drag racing activities. There had been quite a bit of experimentation taking place. In fact, I think the earliest quarter-mile acceleration races date back to 1948 and 1949.
Drag racing supplanted the art of high-speed motoring up on the dry lakes. It's the only thing we had. And of course, it invited a lot of outside, such as the out-of-staters, to take over, because after all, they had quarter-mile strips too, and they were street racing and drag racing all over this United States. That was very popular. So drag racing was really a natural.
We took our cars, and needless to say, things were getting faster, the cars were getting better, and street racing, after you get a little older, wasn't quite there. We finally got some old air bases to run on, and it was really funny. We would take the cars out. It was almost like the dry lakes in California, which is all we were reading about at the time. And we didn't even want people out there, because it seemed like they were, you know, that was just something we had to deal with that we didn't want around. We just wanted to race cars there, and everybody loved their car, and you'd go out and make your runs, and it was a camaraderie thing.
We'd made several attempts on the West Coast to put together a group that would be more national in scope than what we had. We had not only the Southern California Timing Association, but several other groups out there. Collectively, we were never able to even decide on a name, much less what our objective was going to be. So in 1951, we decided to announce the idea of a national association, and we used the pages of Hot Rod Magazine by publishing a letter from a Bob Cameron Jr. that suggested, why not a national association? And in the letter, it outlined some of the details of the need and some of the prospects and possibilities. We put it in the magazine just to see what kind of feedback we would get. Well, the response was far greater than we anticipated, and we knew that we were on the right track. So, in the following issue, we ran the announcement of the formation of National Hot Rod Association with a membership application. It cost $2 to join, and started off. After introducing it in Hot Rod Magazine, had to put together the necessary organizational details, which actually called for some officers to be established. So I selected two friends of mine who had been involved in dry lake racing for many years. One of them was Ack Miller, who was a fellow member of the Roadrunners Club, and the other one was Marvin Lee, who was a very active member of the Pasadena Roadster Club. Marvin had a lot of experience in that city's civic activities there as a member of the JCs, president of the JCs, and Ack was a very well-known personality from dry lakes racing and had been the president of the Southern California Timing Association. So I talked the two of them into coming down with me, and we set up the incorporation of NHRA as a nonprofit corporation.
Well, as it was first organized, Wally Parks was the president, Ack Miller was the vice president, I was the secretary-treasurer. That was our beginning group that governed, you might say, the rest of the board.
NHRA basically was basically an outgrowth of our Southern California Timing Association. When you really want to get pragmatic about it, think about it. But all of the germs were planted in Wally's head as a result of course, his experience with SCTA and so on. That it had to be a natural outgrowth of our local scene here, expanded out to the United States, all of the 50 states.
We had to make a decision on whether to use the hot rod title and it wasn't a title then, it was just an identification, whether to use that or try to get away from it. But we decided that no matter what we might try to call ourselves, that people are going to talk about the hot rods, good or bad, that they saw. And the hot rod title probably turned out to be the best glue that we could have ever found for what we're trying to achieve. When we formed NHRA, we were definitely not a a racing-oriented operation. What we wanted to do was to be able to unite car clubs into a national group by providing various forms of activities in which they could participate, and then ultimately hoping that there would be some contests that would build themselves into national runoffs. When we started out, we had reliability runs and we had car shows and safety checks, but we found before very long that we still hadn't accomplished that goal of providing something to overcome the street race dilemma. So with that in mind, we went to work on quarter-mile acceleration, and that sport would be something that would be attractive to the car clubbers and individual members of the organization.
I was interested in racing cars, and after the war, of course, I used to race on the street with everybody else. After the war, when I come home, I got a little more mature, and I went to work for a police department here in Pomona, and we started a program on the police department to try to work with the car clubs. It was obvious that they had to have a place to try out. So we came out here one day and looked around, Chief Parker and myself, who was the chief at that time, and looked at this beautiful expanse of graveled parking lot not being used the major portion of the year, and talked to the very progressive people who were the head of the Los Angeles County Fairgrounds Board at that time, and was able to interest them in allowing us to lay down a strip of asphalt. We brought the people in and they sat in their cars and stood around, and the main thing was to give the young people a place to try their vehicles out, get them off the street, bring them out here on a weekend, and give them a trophy for running.
We've been producing and co-producing individual events at tracks as they were springing up around the country, but we'd never really tried to do anything on a major scale. So we decided that we had to expand on our past performance and experience, and had to put on a major race somewhere. Well, the Los Angeles County Fairground was sitting out there and was being operated by the Pomona Valley Timing Association. So we made a proposal to them that we would like to produce the first West Coast Championships and just see what would happen. We were overwhelmed by the number of spectators who turned out, because I think we had grandstands for about 200 people total, and we lined the cars down the side of the course, put hay bales out in front of them out there, and kept them back at a safe distance and ran the race. It was an experiment, but it did give us the confidence that we were in a position to start thinking about the development of something on a more national scale.
At that particular time, we had a terrific proliferation of classes. Santa Ana had their designation of classes, San Fernando had theirs, Pomona had theirs, Fontana had theirs, and it was a difficult thing to figure out what class you were going to run in wherever you were going to be.
Initially, when we were faced with the responsibility of developing competition rules and classes, we didn't have much to use as a guideline because the other various forms of auto racing didn't fit the pattern of all the mixed bag of types of equipment that we were running. We borrowed quite a lot from our experience at the dry lakes. And at the dry lakes, why most of the classes were based on the weight of the car divided by the cubic inches of the engine. So we started out on that, but we found that the distribution of weight became very important. A lot of features fit into it, so we knew that we were going to have to develop our classes and then expand on them. I think the development of the classes was a very important part of